Our topic is selection decision. Our group is group 5. I'm Nan, that's John, Courtney, Tom, and Megan. I'll be introducing selection. What is the selection process? Selection is a process of screening applicants to ensure that the most appropriate candidate is hired. The first step in selection process is to review the information, such as resume and application form, provided by all job applicants to determine which applicants meet the minimal qualification as stated in the job posting. Megan will go in depth with these steps later. No further consideration will be given to those who do not meet the minimal qualification. Those job applicants who meet or exceed the minimum job qualification are then asked to decide which one will be shortlisted for the job interview by using selection matrix. What is selection matrix? A selection matrix is a tool that lets you objectively compare an applicant qualification to a job vacancy qualifications and functions, as well as compare applicants to one another based on established job-related criteria. This is a valuable hiring tool because it proves equal employment opportunity to all applicants. Selection decisions are made only in lawful, job-related, and non-discriminatory criteria. History of Matrix. Stuart Pugh was a professor and head of division at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow. Pugh developed and published the Pugh Matrix in Total Design in 1991. The Pugh Total Design was widely acknowledged as seminal works in product design, and it has a standard of much product design teaching. It is also called by a name. You might hear Pugh method, decision matrix, selection matrix, problem matrix. For this presentation, we are going to use decision matrix and selection matrix. Although the Pugh method was created for product engineering, HR used selection matrix as a tool that helped the firm to narrow the decision and on the best candidate. The benefit of selection matrix include provide a collaborative team environment, reduce emotion and bias from decision-making process, provide a constant approach for selecting among several applicants, provide a tool to define qualified candidate based on the best characteristic from job competencies in interview. When to use selection matrix? When the firm is faced with a collective of very talented candidates who are vying for the same spot in a company team. By using the selection matrix, this process will help sort through each of the candidates and determine which applicant is going to be the right person to add to the firm. How to develop a selection matrix. In order to develop a selection matrix, you and your selection panel will need to thoroughly analyze the position required, qualification preferred, qualification job function. As you analyze these qualification functions, take the following steps to develop the selection matrix. Decide which technical and performance job skills you want to evaluate through the selection matrix. Identify which qualification you can see in an application. Determine which qualification skills must be overviewed in an interview or discerned from response to interview questions. Develop and create a rating system. Assign range of rating points 1 to 5 to each qualification and interview questions. You may also need numerical weight factor. Courtney will explain in depth later in these slides. How to use a selection matrix. Because applicants must meet all of the position required qualification in order to be considered. You probably want to start by screening each applicant's material to determine if they meet the requirement. You can then eliminate any applicants who don't meet all the requirement qualifications. This is an effective way to avoid wasting time on selection matrix or unqualified applicants. Once you eliminate unqualified applicants, you can either proceed to interview the entire applicant pool, or you can use matrix to help select the top most competitive candidates for interview. Whether you start by using the matrix before or after the initial interview process. You want to use a selection matrix in the following way. Calculate the individual total points for each qualification and interview. Add the total technical job skill point and the total interview question point together and calculate the total point score for each applicant. To review what we went over, the selection matrix can objectively and accurately assess and compare the applicant qualification. Use the selection matrix to assist and screen those applicants for interviews. use the interview matrix to assist in selection of the finalists from the interview process. For the new and you, during my HR internship with Rescare with Professor Rosemary Corey, I did not get the opportunity to use the selection matrix, even though I work in the recruiting selection department. You might not know this, but we all used selection matrix before, but probably a simple one. Instead of writing out, we all probably used it in our head, either deciding what to wear or what new phone we want. I recently made a selection matrix when I was looking for a resort that best fit my family and I. We were planning a 2-week vacation trip to Thailand this summer. Thailand have a lot of resorts, from hotels to hostels to 5-star resort. In one of the week, we wanted to stay in Phuket Island. The most important requirement was the beachfront resort. This was way more in our selection matrix. The second important requirement is a reasonable price. The other qualification was a villa resort, a private pool, overlooks the ocean, serves breakfast, not overcrowded beach, in a mix of party central and quiet area. We started with 10 resorts, and by the selection matrix, we was able to narrow it down to 2 resorts. Selection decision matrix is a tool that helps narrow and decide on the best candidate or product. Up next, we will have Megan with job analysis.
Thank you, Nan. My name is Megan, and I'm going to discuss job analysis and selection. Job analysis is the process to identify and determine in detail the particular job duties and requirements and the relative importance of these duties for a given job. The purpose is to establish and document the job relatedness of employment procedures such as training, selection, compensation, and performance appraisal. There are different ways that job analysis relates to selection, such as identifying job duties that should be included in advertisements of available positions, developing appropriate salary level for the position to help determine what salary should be offered to a candidate, identifying the minimum requirements for screening applicants, developing interview questions, developing which selection tests/instruments are appropriate, identifying applicant appraisal or evaluation forms, identifying orientation materials for applicants and new hires, and information collecting for job analysis. Moving forward, as Nan stated, selection is a process of screening applicants to find the best fit candidate. Some basic selection criteria are formal education, such as how does the candidate meet the education requirements and where do they stand in relation to the other candidates. There's also experience and past performance, which are what type of jobs did they perform in the past and are they relative to the position. Physical characteristics and personality characteristics are also important in evaluating a candidate. Next, we'll talk about competencies. They are individual characteristics including knowledge, skills, abilities, self-image traits, mindsets, feelings, and ways of thinking, which when used with the appropriate roles achieve a desired result. Knowledge is information obtained from formal training and experience. A skill is a developed proficiency in mental operations or physical processes that is often acquired through specialized training, also important in resulting in successful performance. Individual attributes are properties, qualities, or characteristics of individuals that reflect unique personal makeup. These are viewed as genetically developed or acquired from life experiences. Next, we'll talk about the SHRM competency model. The Society of Human Resource Management created the competency model to help organizations build approaches to identifying and cultivating high-quality HR leaders, individual contributors, and teams. The competency model is comprised of 9 competencies. First, we have human resource expertise, which is the knowledge of principles, practices, and functions of effective HR management. Second is relationship management, which is the ability to manage interactions to provide service and to support the organization. Third is consultation, which is the ability to provide guidance to organizational stakeholders. Fourth is leadership and navigation, which is the ability to direct and contribute to initiatives and processes within the org. Fifth is communication, which is the ability to effectively exchange information with stakeholders. Sixth is global and cultural effectiveness, which is the ability to value and consider the perspectives and backgrounds of all parties. 7 is ethical practices, which integrates core values. Eighth is critical evaluation, which is the ability to interpret information. And lastly, we have business acumen, which is the ability to understand and apply information. Next, we're going to talk about tests, which measure knowledge, skill, and ability. There are 6 types of tests. First is cognitive ability test, which measures learning, understanding, and ability to solve problems. Physical ability testing assesses muscular strength, cardiovascular endurance, and coordination. Personality testing measures the patterns of thought, emotions, and behavior. Integrity testing is designed to assess the likelihood that applicants will be dishonest or engage in illegal activity. Drug testing normally requires applicants to provide a certain type of sample that is tested for illegal substances. And an example is Amazon will give their applicants a math workflow problem to complete during the interview process to assess how a potential manager would coordinate work duties and facilitate demands based on the given situation. Next, we'll talk about interviewing, which the purpose is because it offers valuable insight into a candidate's personality and abilities. It also allows the candidate to decide whether their credentials and career goals match up with what the company wants. There are 4 types of interviews. First is competency-based interview, which identifies criteria for the job successes and search for the applicant whose past work experience match the criteria. Then there's a panel interview, which is an interview conducted by a small group of managers and/or campus reps that allows for various perspectives. There's an individual or one-on-one interview, which is an interview conducted one-on-one. In some instances, the HR rep may conduct the first round of interviews and select a few finalists. There's also a phone interview, which is usually one of the first steps in the interview process and is very casual. Post-interview, after all scheduled interviews are conducted, the hiring manager works together and decides who the best candidate is. Since the day I could get working papers, I had some type of job. Looking back, I've been through many different types of interviews and selection processes. It's interesting to look back and evaluate not only myself during my past experiences and interviews, but the different types of managers who I encountered. Although most of my interviews have been for restaurants, retailers, and other basic positions, every manager has their own way of interviewing and selecting candidates. For example, my first interview ever was for Aeropostale, and it was a group interview. I didn't really understand the group interview because I didn't think it was a good representation of each individual. Knowing what I know today, I realize that group interviews are good to compare candidates all at one time. I've been on other interviews that were in a group, and it actually makes the candidates feel more comfortable. Moving forward with my human resources career, I want to take into consideration all of the interviews I've been through and apply them to my own job in the future. I'm very interested in recruiting roles, and that makes this very important to me. Job selection analysis and the interviewing process is very relevant to not only any recruiting position, but any management position. Hiring, selection, and the interview process is really important to creating a successful company, as it's the core of the business. Next up, I'm going to introduce Courtney, who will be talking about the selection matrix and giving an example.
Thank you, Megan. My name is Courtney, and I'm going to go through a sample selection matrix with you all. It is important to understand that not every selection matrix is equal. In fact, it is a crucial step to ensure that a new matrix is created for each and every job position. This helps to ensure that the end results are as accurate as possible. This is the job posting that we will be making a selection matrix for. Rowan's Business School is seeking to hire a full-time director for the new career center. A bachelor's degree is required. The candidate must have experience with academic advising or career counseling. The ideal candidate must have demonstrated experience in working with the university community members, experience with student success programming, experience with staff and campus-wide training, experience in an academic affairs environment, leadership and management roles, and demonstrated experience working with diverse groups. To create a selection matrix, there are 4 main steps. First, you must brainstorm a list of competencies. You should make sure that these competencies are relevant to the position you are trying to fill. You need to work together with department director to discuss and define the list of criteria, and then you must narrow down the most important and relevant competencies. Then you need to establish a rating scale. Some examples of rating scales are 1, 2, and 3, 1 being low, 3 being high, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 being little, 5 being great, 1, 4, 9, and assign fixed numbers. For our example, we are going to assign fixed numbers. Once the selection matrix has been created, it is time to begin the interview process. Candidates that receive an interview are selected through a typical selection process. This process involves the review of resumes, cover letters, and job applications. Once these candidates are pre-screened, it's time to begin the interview. The first part of the matrix involves the applicant name and the minimum qualifications. Minimum qualifications are steps in which a candidate must hit in order to even be considered for the job position. In this example, the candidate must have at least a bachelor's degree or a combination of work experience to be considered equivalent. The next segment of our matrix is educational experience. One must have at least a bachelor's degree to even be considered. However, if they have a master's degree or a PhD, they will receive more points, which will higher their score at the end. In this case, the candidate with the higher ending score will be most fitting for the job. The next part of our matrix pertains to career and academic advising. Those candidates who have demonstrated experience with academic advising will receive 6 points, and those who have demonstrated experience with career guidance will also receive 6 points. It is possible for candidates to receive both points for these categories. Next up, we have program development, implementation, and assessment. It is here a candidate will receive points for demonstrating experience working with university community members, experience with program assessment and evaluation, maintaining web presence, and program implementation and oversight. The next part of this matrix is experience with core responsibilities. This is where a candidate will receive points for experience with student success programming and experience with staff and campus-wide training. As you can see, our matrix categories directly reflect the qualifications that were listed in the original job posting. The last part of our matrix involves personal and supervision. This part of the matrix will account for the experiences previous candidates have had in leadership activities. The potential employees will receive points for supervising others, training and mentoring staff, and coordinating activities with others. Finally, it is time to tally up all of the points that each candidate received. Because we use a fixed scale, the candidate with the higher total should be considered to be the most qualified for the job we are searching to fill. It is important to understand your scale because it has a direct impact on who you're going to hire in the end. From here, the matrix can be passed on to who will be making the hiring decisions. In some cases, this person is going to be the hiring manager, and in other cases, it could be the direct supervisor. A selection matrix is a great deal of work and is often much more difficult than the one I just presented. They are typically not used for high turnover rates and higher up jobs. The job posting is created and the matrix is made to directly reflect that posting. This helps to eliminate all biases and focus strictly on the candidate's skills and abilities. This concept is difficult to grasp at first, but is easy once learned. My new view relates to my job hunting experiences over the past few years. Last semester, I found myself applying to internships and not receiving many opportunities to interview. Obviously, I did not take this well and was constantly changing my resume and cover letter in hopes of receiving some calls. Then I decided to go back and take another look at the job postings. It turns out that I was applying for jobs in which I did not meet the minimum qualifications for. When I went back and double-checked the job postings, I realized that many jobs required a master's degree or previous job experience in that industry. Because I did not fit these requirements, I was automatically not considered. This made me think about all the opportunities I missed out on due to the computer system automatically kicking me out of the candidate pool. It is crucial to make sure that your job applications are as accurate as possible due to the fact that human eyes are rarely going to see them. As we discussed in class, computer systems are not forgiving and are very quick to eliminate a candidate. I'm definitely going to remember these concepts when I am a human resource professional. It is important to consider using selection matrices when making hiring decisions. The strict guidelines the matrices offer help to ensure that a qualified candidate is hired. Because some of the matrices are created off the job description, one can have certainty that the candidate will be a good fit. I think that selection matrices are a good idea to make sure that you are truly finding the perfect fit for jobs and what you're looking to fill. It can also help avoid legal troubles and favoritism in the workplace. In order for a person to receive a job offer based on a selection matrix, They must score the highest at the end of that. Next up, we have Tom talking about the final decision.
Thanks, Courtney. I'll be talking about making the final decision. In making a final decision on hiring a potential candidate, it is important to refer back to the pre-matrix checklist to ensure that selection process was accurate. First, you need to make sure the hiring team discussed the matrix in advance and that it was created relating to the job posting. That leads to the second step, where the matrix criteria must complement the responsibilities of the job itself. The third step is, do minimum qualifications match the job posting? So you want to make sure that qualifications such as education, work experience, or availability that a job requires are implemented will determine the pool of candidates. If you need be, it may be smart to assign a separate matrix for specific minimum qualifications. Evaluation of candidates requires comparison, which I'll go over on the next slide, and decision making. The main goal is to select the person that will be the most suitable in contributing to the organization's success and producing the desired results. Now, difficulty in this that must be realized is that we will only have limited knowledge on candidates gained from the selection process. Now, the two types of comparisons that must be addressed are absolute and relative. Absolute is where the applicant is compared directly with the set of criteria that is defined, so how each person ranks in the matrix per category. Relative comparison is when the applicants are compared among each other after their ranks have been defined. Some applicants may have strengths where others have weaknesses. When making an intelligent hiring decision, you really need to know as much as you can about an individual. That is why the matrix is used, but important questions to ask yourself are, who is this person and are they really the best choice for the position? These types of decisions should not be rushed to make a quick position fill. Once you have all your information organized, you may want to get away from the office for some time to focus. It will also allow you to get away from people who may try to influence your hiring decision, as well as in removing possible distractions. This retreat will enable you to look at candidates thoroughly and carefully. You may also take any additional notes which could pose additional questions that need to be asked. Now, the actual decision to decide on a new hire should not come from other department heads if you are the one who is going to manage, motivate, discipline, and promote them. Therefore, the HR department or the hiring team need to remain in constant communication with the department managers who have the open position. The needs of the actual position will be recognized from the managers. Aside from the matrix itself, it may serve to be beneficial if you perform a SWOT analysis on the candidates. I see this most being effective if used on the candidates who all rank high or are tied at the end of the matrix. You can break down each individual based on their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats they may pose. You also want to ensure that you steer clear of wrongful decisions. Snap judgment should be avoided, where you quickly judge someone off of your own perceptions without understanding the person. We also do not want to base decisions off of race, gender, sexual orientation, or religion. And once again, going back to your own immediate perceptions on people, you should make sure to avoid stereotyping. Next, you want to avoid mirroring. This is when you might select a candidate based on your own image, so you hire someone who is most like you. You also want to avoid any over-reliance on a single criteria in the matrix. This can be somewhat avoided if weights were previously assigned to each category. And lastly, decisions should not be focused on any information provided informally. It is wise to keep all your scoring notes throughout the entire process. This is to ensure the fair process through which the decision is made can be demonstrated if the outcome is challenged at all. Organization and proper storage of applicant information is key to forming your final decision. Especially in a large pool of applicants, there may be opposition in selection after the matrix is performed. In these types of group decisions, you must learn to argue your solution if others do not agree with you. You must be able to effectively communicate your thoughts to other team members and explain your reasoning to make sure they understand the logic behind it. Now, like I mentioned earlier, it is critical that you do not just jump into a decision to quickly fill positions. If there isn't anyone in the pool of applicants who would be appointable, it is better to reopen the process than to employ someone who is not up to the sought-out standards. Hiring the wrong person can create problems in the long run, so it is better to spend more time finding the right person. If a decision was able to be made successfully, the circumstances must be examined. Was there more than one candidate being hired, or was the goal to fill one position? If there was more than one hire, the construction of the offer letters, which will be later discussed, could be different. Lastly, a process to communicate the new hire information to the staff should be implemented. Finally, before extending the official offer, the hiring team should assess what type of training is required. Based on candidates' backgrounds or past experiences, or for example, they could present certain licenses. The training for each individual could vary and lead down a different path. For the new and you, I decided to relate what I went over to my own experience. Having worked in retail for the past 6 years, I tend to see a lot of turnover. These types of jobs tend to search for a quick hire, even if the candidate is not 100% what they're looking for, and that can lead to negative impacts such as more turnover. Now, I currently work in banking and have been for about 2 years now. I'm a supervisor in my current role, and I am included in the process for hiring new employees at my branch. Right now, the process is HR will receive applications, perform a phone interview, and if the candidates pass the phone interview, they are sent to the branch for a face-to-face interview. If the candidate seems fit for the position, a decision is usually made right away. However, since there are so many different qualifications that go into being able to work at a bank, I would say a decision matrix could only serve to be beneficial. Instead of taking applicants and decisioning them as they come, a larger pool should be examined and ranked. I also see many times where someone is hired for the position that isn't really qualified. It may seem redundant, but it's critical to always go back and revisit the job need. I also could directly relate to separating yourself from the work environment when making decisions. And lastly, we all know that any decision can be made, and at the end of the day, the hiring team will have the final say regardless of the process used. But the decision matrix definitely aids in making effective decisions. Effective would be defined as producing and contributing to the successes of the organization and those around you. So next will be John discussing the job offer letter.
Alright, I'm John, and I'll be talking about the final job offer. Basically, it's offering the job to the best qualified candidates. This is a process that starts way before just sending the written job offer letter, through gathering information during the recruiting stage and pre-closing the candidate to get verbal acceptance of wanting the job offer. Before extending the job offer, you need to do homework and collect important data that could benefit you when you write the official job offer. Also, you want to pre-close the candidate, which is a step that can have a huge impact on acceptance rates, but is a step often skipped by many companies and can cause lower rates of accepting the job offer. You want to start to do your homework. During the recruiting process, it's important to gather key data points during the initial conversations. A couple must-have data points would be last 2 years' income, percentage of income from base and bonus, expected income for next job, ability and willingness to commute to work, desired start date, and the expected cost of relocation if necessary. To pre-close the candidate, once a candidate has a very strong chance of receiving a job offer, you want to make a pre-closing call. The goal of this is to just outline the details of the job offer so there's no major surprises. Just be very clear that this is a confirmation of the candidate's interest and not a verbal job offer, and set up a meeting or call date to talk about further steps. Extending the job offer, once you have agreed internally to move forward with the candidate's job offer, call the candidate at the time set previously or set up a new time to talk with the candidate about the next steps. This still isn't the official job offer, just some more detail searching to try to structure the job offer in a way that best suits both sides. You want to start off with good news. You want to start off with, like, we'd like to formally extend you an offer. You want this conversation to be natural and comfortable because this conversation is going to affect how you write the official job offer. You want to set the agenda of the conversation, have them hear everything that you want to say. And then next you want to sell the opportunity. So after you set the agenda of the conversation, you want to sell the opportunity and focus on the assignment with candidate's goals in mind. You might want to describe the impact the employee will make, discuss long-term opportunities, highlight company strengths, and create a direct link between candidates' previous career or personal goals with the job. And then you want to discuss details of the job. Next, you'll want to specifically talk about any details, requests, or issues that won't be written in the official job offer to avoid any bad surprises. This is also a chance for the candidate to ask any questions that haven't been discussed yet or bring up any concern they may be having about the job or the process of the job offer. Next, you want to ask for feedback. If the candidate is satisfied with the details, then ask for a verbal acceptance. For example, something like, so if you are good with the offer and this is a verbal acceptance, I'll put together the formal letter and get it to you. There's no reason to send the offer if you don't get a verbal acceptance from the candidate. If the candidate has any remaining questions or concerns, identify them. After the verbal acceptance, prepare the candidate for a counteroffer from the current employer if the candidate has a job presently. remind them why they are leaving the employer and how they will benefit your company. Also tell them when you'll be sending the written offer to them and how long they have to accept it, which is usually 2 to 3 business days. So the written job offer, they don't really differ much from one company to the other. The main components of the job offer include a friendly congratulations, the job title, the date to begin the job, location of the job, the salary and hourly wage, overtime payment, and a phone number to call for any questions. Final steps, you want to make sure to follow up with the candidate to make sure that they have received all the paperwork and everything is in order. Always require the offer letter to be signed and returned by a specified date. Not doing this will give the candidate more time to back out or accept the competitor's offer, so you'll usually only give them a few days to have it returned. And then you want to check in and follow up. Once the offer is in the hiring staff or recruiter's hand, you should follow up on the candidate at least once a week until they start to make sure everything is good and see if they have any questions. Once they start, you should also check in on them every day for the first week to make sure everything is going smoothly. From a candidate's perspective, first of all, you don't have to always accept a job offer once it's mailed to you, but even if you have no interest in the job at all, you should send them the company a thank you letter to thank them for the job offer. You can also negotiate the offer during the meetings before the written job offer. So with negotiating, obviously the main thing you're going to negotiate is going to be salary. So you want to have an idea of your ideal salary. You don't want to make your salary offer too early because this will show the company that salary is your bottom line detail. You want to offer your highest but reasonable salary offer, knowing it will go down with the negotiations. So you want to stay away from making the salary your bottom line. So there's a lot of other benefits to negotiate about that could make up for a smaller salary. These benefits could be overtime, vacation time, stock options, flex time, health insurance, a sign-up bonus, or even a pension or retirement plan. And then you want to ask yourself if you really want it. Accepting the job is a big commitment and decision that can affect your life in many ways. So you want to make sure you go through the details and make sure that you'll be satisfied with this offer like a couple months down the road and not start regretting it. So for my new and you, I only had one experience with the job offer, which was from Target for a management position. I really liked the opportunity to gain experience. I would be making more money than minimum wage, and Target's right down the street from me, so it'd be an easy commute. But unfortunately, I actually had to decline the offer because the hours they wanted me to work would not fit with my school schedule. As much as I wanted to be able to make more money, I still need to make sure I have time for school. It was a very easy process as I just called Target and let them know why I was declining the offer. They tried to negotiate back with me and try to make the hours fit my schedule, but in the end we couldn't negotiate something that would work, so I had to decline. What I learned from this experience is that directly links to what I just talked about is that you can always decline a job offer and that negotiations about the offer will always happen from both sides, so be ready for that and prepare for that. And that is it, and thank you for listening to us. Oh.
Did you have it?
I can't.
Alright.
Still videotaping, right?
Good thing.
That would suck.
We would go down there.
Okay. Holy shit.